What is going on, shrimp keepers? This is Rob with flipaquatics.com, and today we are talking about a topic that I know is going to help so many of you, and that is answering the question of why are my shrimp dying? Here at Flip Aquatics, we are an importer and a breeder. We bring in anywhere between 250 to 300,000 shrimp a year and growing. And so we deal with a ton of shrimp, and I've been in this for about 10 years. I've bred a lot, I've done a lot, and I've learned a lot along the way. So I want to share a little bit of my knowledge and what I've learned through my journey of keeping shrimp, and hopefully that can help you. So I've actually narrowed this down to the 10 most common reasons why your shrimp could be dying. So you guys sit back, get your notepad, write some notes, and let's get right into this video. If this is your first time here at Flip Aquatics, or even if it's your third or fourth time or your 100th time, would you guys consider hitting that subscribe button? It doesn't cost a thing, it's completely free, and you're gonna get a lot more of these educational videos.
The number one most common reason you may be having shrimp deaths in your aquarium is due to water parameters. Now, the first thing we always suggest is check with the source that you plan on buying your shrimp from. It's always good to talk to the source, ask them how they're keeping the shrimp, and the reason you do that is because you want to match those parameters to the best of your ability. The next thing is to know the type of shrimp you want, because that's going to determine your tank setup. For example, Neocaridina such as cherry shrimp, fancy blues, bloody marys, orange pumpkin, black rose, snowballs, green jades, so on and so forth, they prefer harder water with a pH above 7. Whereas Caridina shrimp such as crystal shrimp, Taiwan bees, some tiger shrimp, different types of Soloisi shrimp, they all require different parameters. Some like a pH of less than 7 and soft water. Some prefer a pH above 7, but still soft water. And so there's going to be a lot of different variables there. The next thing is shrimp specific soil is not always good for all types of shrimp. As we just talked about, Neocaridina prefer harder water. They like a pH above 7. Even though Brightwell shrimp soil is one of the best shrimp soils out there, it's not going to do well for Neocaridina simply because it's going to keep your pH below 7. The last topic to consider when talking about water parameters is the use of tap water. While not all tap water is bad, almost all tap water can be inconsistent. What I mean by inconsistent is that your local water facility may have to treat for bacteria in the water lines. While the treatment they use is perfectly safe for humans, common pets, and even your fish, it may be detrimental to shrimp and other invertebrates. The other thing to consider is different seasons can bring different water parameters. The safest option is to use RO water or distilled water and remineralize it with a shrimp-specific mineralizer to increase the GH and KH to correct levels. While using RO water and distilled water is a little bit more expensive, you can almost guarantee every time that your water is perfect for the inhabitants. The second most common reason that you're going to be seeing shrimp deaths is the source of your shrimp. It's important to know that not all sellers are the same. There's homebred shrimp and there's imported shrimp, but the practices of how you keep your shrimp and how you breed your shrimp is huge. Cheap shrimp can easily mean poor genetics due to inbreeding. So even though you may get homebred shrimp, it doesn't necessarily mean that these shrimp are going to be healthy. Now, the source of where you're getting your shrimp is so important. For example, here at Flip Aquatics, we are the only importer in the United States that offers a 30-day holding period to ensure the health of our shrimp. We do this for multiple reasons that we'll talk about in more detail later on in this video, but some of these reasons why we do a 30-day holding period is one, our philosophy. Our philosophy is that we take the loss so that you don't have to. The majority of shrimp deaths happen in the first 30 days of receiving shrimp, due to stressful shipping or a multitude of other reasons. And so we want to take that initial loss so that you as a customer don't have to. The next reason is shrimp need stability. Going from point A to point B to C to D is not good for anyone, let alone shrimp. And so we want to make sure they have a stable environment and they are well fed way before I ever send them to our customers. The next thing is we do sell imported shrimp. That means when we're getting in shrimp, they do have bacterial infections. They can have parasites. They may have diseases. And so we want to take 30 days to ensure that those shrimp are healthy. Now, sometimes we hold our shrimp for 60 days or 90 days, whatever it takes to make sure that our livestock is healthy for you is what we are going to do. We actually inspect every single shrimp that leaves our warehouse. We check them over for parasites, diseases, potential bacterial infections, and we want to ensure that our customers get the healthiest shrimp possible, so far that we actually guarantee that they are healthy or you get your money back. Now, another thing that most people may not know, getting shrimp from multiple sources can be a pretty bad thing. Different shrimp can be immune to different types of bacteria. They may be carriers, but they may be perfectly healthy. But as soon as you introduce one source that may be immune to a certain bacteria to another source that isn't immune to that bacteria, one source can completely kill off the other source. If you ever add two sources of shrimp together, the best way to do it is start a new tank. So this is why choosing a source and sticking with your source is so important to ensuring that you have healthy shrimp. So once you set up your tank, I would never add new types of genetics to that tank unless you're starting a different tank. The last thing is inbreeding. Now, poor genetics can always be a bad thing. And even USA bred shrimp can have terrible genetics depending on how they were bred. So again, finding a good source and sticking with that source is extremely important. The third most common reason why you might be having deaths in your shrimp tank is shipping. As we talked about earlier, shipping is stressful. Due to this stress, shrimp tend to molt, and an early molt uses up a lot of nutrients. This is why you will see most deaths within the first 30 days of having shrimp. Providing a stable environment is essential to having success with your shrimp. The next reason, like all animals, shrimp poop. Poop causes ammonia, and ammonia is very toxic to shrimp. So whenever your shrimp arrive, it is good practice to add a dechlorinator to the water that they arrive in. Now, Shrimp Prep from Brightwell and ACCR from Fritz Aquatics are two great options to add in this situation. And the reason I suggest those two is because a lot of people have products like Seachem Prime. Now, Seachem Prime is a great product, but in environments with low oxygen, it can actually deplete the oxygen and suffocate the inhabitants. Because shipping water doesn't have an air stone, it doesn't have a filter running, it's going to be low on oxygen. So adding something like Seachem Prime can actually cause a lot more harm than good. So I would always stick to things that I know, and two products that I know that work are Shrimp Prep by Brightwell and ACCR by Fritz Aquatics. The next reason why shipping can be so dangerous is actually not the shipping, but once you receive them. Quick acclimation can kill shrimp. Acclimation is the most important thing after you receive your shrimp. Too fast, too long, you can result in extra stress, which can lead to shrimp deaths. We have a detailed video on acclimation that I'm going to link right now. It's going to be up in the top right, or it'll be down in the description. Feel free to refer to that guide for a more detailed explanation on how to acclimate your shrimp properly. The fourth most common reason why you're going to have shrimp deaths is bacterial infection. Now, when you receive your shrimp, they may have spent a day in the mail. They may have spent 3 days in the mail. They could have been in the mail for a week. Now, if the company you bought them from didn't fast these shrimp prior to sending them to you, then it's likely these shrimp are ingesting their own poop. Now, this can definitely lead to bacterial infections. Bacteria is this invisible enemy that you can't always see. If you have the proper parameters, if you have a trusted source for your shrimp, and you know the shipping was top notch, then likely if you are experiencing deaths, it's due to a bacterial infection. Anytime that you have a number of unexplained deaths, most of the time it is due to a bacterial issue because everything else is checking out. We have found two great ways to solve this problem. We use a product called Maricin and a product called Maricin 2. Now, before you go off and start dosing Maricin and Maricin 2, there's a couple things that I want to point out. First off, we dose at half dose. So whatever the recommended dose is, cut it in half. Now, after 2 days, if you're still seeing deaths, we treat a second time, but rarely do we treat a third time. So on day 4, you want to do a water change and you want to add live bacteria into your tank or move the shrimp back into their home aquarium. Now, the reason that I say that is because it is important to know that Maricin and Maricin 2, while they do kill bacteria, they kill all bacteria. So good or bad, it's going to die. Therefore, setting up a quarantine tank with water from your current tank is ideal. But if it's not possible, then you will need to treat your tank with healthy bacteria after you perform the water change. This leads us to our fifth most common reason why shrimp die. Now, the fifth most common reason shrimp die, and I'm guessing that you're going to know this based on what we just said, is a non-cycled aquarium. Now, let's start with the basics. Shrimp do not produce much waste. Therefore, we see many tanks go through what we call a recycle. This is when the shrimp tank was cycled and the shrimp didn't produce enough waste to keep the beneficial bacteria alive. Now, fast forward 3 months, when the shrimp have babies and you're feeding more food, all of a sudden your ammonia is going to spike and it's going to kill off an entire tank. Now, there are a few products that we recommend that we always have on hand for this situation. The first thing we recommend is another animal. We always recommend to our customers to keep mystery snails or another type of snail in their tank. Not only do they keep the beneficial bacteria alive, but they eat unwanted food. The other product we recommend isn't quite an animal, but it's something that you should always have. Live bacteria. TurboStart by Fritz Aquatics. Now, this is the best bacteria on the market, and it's important to know that you have to refrigerate it. But the one thing that I always tell everyone is this is not going to work if your pH is below 7. So that means for most Caridina shrimp, this is not the bacteria for you. But if you're setting up a cichlid tank or a Neocaridina tank, this is going to work phenomenally well. Now, if your pH is below 7, don't worry, because we do have a product that's going to work for you. Florinbacter 1 by Brightwell is designed specifically with Caridina shrimp in mind. This product is good to use with a pH of less than 7 and doesn't need to be refrigerated. Florinbacter Clean is the last bacteria I'm going to recommend. Now, this is completely different from the last two we just talked about. This is a live bacteria, but it's a live bacteria that's centered around eating sludge. So I think of this one as the bacteria you find in septic systems that dissolves organics. Now, it's not necessarily going to convert ammonia into nitrate, then into nitrate, but it is going to eat the organics and help prevent ammonia spikes. Now, the 6th most common reason you're going to have shrimp deaths in your tank is due to feeding. Now, I have never heard of shrimp dying from being underfed, but overfeeding can easily lead to deaths. Again, this is yet another reason we recommend keeping mystery snails in your aquarium or other types of snails. If you feed too much, the snails are going to take care of it. And if any food does fall down into the cracks of the substrate, this is again why we recommend Florinbacter Clean. Florinbacter Clean is going to dissolve those organics and help prevent any kind of ammonia spike. Now, one really good rule is if shrimp are not able to consume the food that you feed them within 2 hours, I would always recommend removing it. This is where it is good to have natural foods in your tank. Biofilm is a great source that will not foul your aquarium. Products such as snowflake food or Bacteria are great food sources that are a lot less likely to foul your aquarium. I always tell everyone, be careful with powdered foods because powdered food is so much easier to dissolve into the water column, which is going to lead to an ammonia spike. Products such as cones, leaves, and driftwood are great at creating a natural food source for your shrimp. Although there are things to watch out for, and we're going to talk about that later on. The 7th most common reason why your shrimp could be dying is because your environment is not stable. While in most areas of life, change can be a good thing, in an aquarium, it can usually cause a lot more harm than good. We always have to remember we are dealing with live animals. A 5-degree change in our house or our home can be the difference between wearing a hoodie or throwing on a t-shirt. Shrimp do not have the luxury of putting on clothes or taking them off. They can't open a window when something's burnt in the oven. They are stuck in the home we provide for them. Therefore, keeping a stable environment for them is essential. We see the biggest changes in environment happen in the following areas. Number 1, water changes. Think of water as the air for an aquarium. If it is always the same, things continue to go well or bad. If the hardness is different and the temp is way off, it can quickly hurt the shrimp from inside the aquarium. This is why we always recommend feeding less in order to cause people to do less water changes. Smaller water changes and less often is almost always better. Remember, shrimp do not produce much waste and therefore they don't need as many water changes. Number 2, whenever there is a shrimp death, it is easy to want to change things. Adjust the water, lower the pH, so on and so forth. Remember, most deaths are going to happen in the first 30 days of receiving your shrimp. So sit back and slow down. Allow the shrimp to adjust to their new home and keep it as stable as possible so that they can adjust. Number 3, know that whenever you add something to your tank, you're running the risk of something going wrong. This leads us to our next reason why we see shrimp deaths. The 8th most common reason we see shrimp deaths in aquariums is decorations. Now, it may sound funny, but this actually happens a lot. The number one culprit is rocks. Rocks are the most common thing that we see causing issues in a shrimp tank. It is important to know that rocks are made of minerals. Some of these are inert while others are not. There are ways to seal rocks, but we will get into that in a later video. Do research on the rock that you want prior to ever adding it to your tank. Number 2 is driftwood, cones, leaves, and other natural products are a great food source for your shrimp, as we talked about before, although they can cause some serious issues. As I said earlier, choosing your source for shrimp, you have to do it carefully. And I'll say it again here, choosing your source for botanicals, you have to do carefully as well, because a little pesticide on a leaf or a cone could actually kill an entire tank of shrimp. And so you want to know that the person you're buying from or the company you're buying from is doing their research to provide you with the best product possible. Now, one thing you could do to kind of prevent or help limit the chances of having an issue is boil all natural products you receive prior to adding them to your aquarium. Now, the last thing in decor is live aquarium plants. Now, the same thing applies here as before. Many vendors are quick to list live plants that they just received a someday. Some of the time, these plants won't even see an aquarium prior to you receiving them. Some plant wholesalers and almost all plant exporters spray their plants with pesticides. If not cleaned properly, these can kill an entire tank of shrimp right away. Here at Flip Aquatics, we look at plants like we do our shrimp. We have invested a lot of money to ensure a proper setup to keep our plants as healthy as possible. We actually put all of our plants into an aquarium to ensure that they are pesticide free before they ever reach your aquarium. We keep fish and snails with all of our plants prior to them ever arriving to you. So if there is an issue, we're going to know about it way before you ever do. And so again, we get back to our philosophy is we take the loss so that you as our customer don't have to. The 9th most common reason that we see shrimp deaths is temperature. Now, I can't begin to tell you the amount of people that we get on a daily basis that think shrimp are tropical and need an 80-degree temperature to thrive. While some shrimp do, the vast majority of shrimp in our hobby prefer 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, as a company, we send out well over 1,000 packages every single month. During the winter, a lot of people are scared to order, but it's good to know that shrimp actually do really good in cold. The only time we ever see issues is when the bag temperature drops below 40 or goes above 80. So it's always better to keep your shrimp in colder water opposed to warmer water. Now, heaters are a huge thing to address here. While heaters can be great for certain situations, I found that heaters in a shrimp tank rarely end well. Earlier, we talked about stability in a shrimp tank. Now, let me just talk about a typical heater and how it works. Most heaters have a 2-degree window. Now, this means that setting a heater at 68, that heater will likely not turn on until it's 66 degrees in your tank, and sometimes won't turn off until it hits 70 degrees in your tank. This is a 4-degree swing in temperature, which is enough to force the shrimp to molt. A good rule is not to change your tank temperature by more than 2 degrees in an hour to avoid stress. Also, consider a power outage. The tank will go without a heater and it's going to cool off. Once the power turns back on, the temp is going to rise up quickly. For these reasons and some others not discussed here, we do not recommend keeping heaters with shrimp unless it's a shrimp that prefers a temperature of 80 or higher. Now, temperature is going to apply to water changes as well. Like we talked about earlier, smaller water changes and less often is almost always better. It is tough to get the water to be the same temperature as your tank. Therefore, smaller water changes are less likely to move the temperature more than 2 degrees in one direction or the other. A tip is to leave your water change water in a bucket overnight next to your aquarium. This will allow the water to acclimate to the room temperature and likely be very close to the temperature of your aquarium. Now, the last reason, the 10th reason that we see shrimp deaths in aquariums is shrimp are living animals. Like all animals, we all eventually do die. It is usually hard to know the age of shrimp when you receive them. And so we always let our customers know that our shrimp are anywhere between 3 months to a year. Shrimp usually only live about 2 years. So if you received a large shrimp from whoever you bought them from and one dies, it may just be the fact that they got old and they died a natural death. It is only when you see a reoccurring pattern of shrimp deaths that you should take action.
Well guys, I hope you made it through this entire video. I really hope you were able to learn something and take something out of this video. This is 10 years of experience in learning on my own to get to the point where I am. So I hope I can help some of you, if not all of you, become a little bit better at shrimp keeping. If you guys have any questions, drop a comment down below. I'll do my best to make more videos on this topic or other topics that are relevant to you guys. You guys make it a great rest of your day, and as always, God bless. We'll see you in the next video.